Right, good afternoon, everyone. We have an excited crowd here, right? These are some gardening fans, I can tell. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jewell Walton, and I am Vice President of Content here at Cincinnati Public Radio. And actually, I came to know about Jennifer Jewell because her sister kind of blackmailed me. Yeah, she said, I'm a donor. And my sister actually hosts a great gardening program called Cultivating Place, and I think you need to give it an audition. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and give it a listen, and I loved it. And it is great that you guys are listening because I know it comes on kind of early in the morning at 7 a.m. So we appreciate you guys listening to the program on 91.7 WVXU. Well, we are thrilled to see such a full house for this afternoon's event, Cultivating Place, the Power of Gardeners with Jennifer Jewell. And first, I want to thank our partners at the Civic Garden Center of Greater Cincinnati. It was their generosity and vision that made this event possible. They're the ones who actually brought Jennifer Jewell to town, and we're so grateful that they allowed us to host this very special program here at Cincinnati Public Radio's new headquarters. Isn't it a beautiful building? Thank you. So Jennifer Jewell is the creator and host of Cultivating Place, conversations on natural history and the human impulse to garden, a public radio program and podcast that explores the vital connections between people, places, and plants. Her work celebrates the ways gardens and gardeners shape our world, culturally, environmentally, and personally. She is also the author of several acclaimed books, including The Earth in Her Hands and What We Sow. So here's how the afternoon will go. Jennifer is going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to actually open the floor up for questions. When we get to that section, you're welcome to walk up to the microphone, but if you can't make it to the microphone, just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you. We have our WVXU digital editor, Jennifer Merritt, standing by to help us with that. And after the program, Jennifer is going to be available to sign any books if you brought those with you. And she's also happy to personalize it. And if you need it, you can actually get a book plate and she can sign that and you can take that home. So just a quick reminder, we got to give ourselves a plug. If you'd like to hear more of Jennifer's work, Cultivating Place airs every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. on 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUB. And now, let's give a big round of applause for Jennifer Jewell.
Test. There we go. That's what the COO does. I am just so excited to be here, and I am so excited after having a tour of Cincinnati Public Radio's new facility today to be in a city that values public radio. And you have a great one. You have a great one. So I could not be more proud to be here with you today, but moreover, to be on Cincinnati Public Radio as long as I have been. And a huge shout out to Janelle for having the bravery to open the link to listen the first time. And she said in the email where we started to talk about having the program air, she was like, at first I was like, I don't think so. Kind of no. And then she heard one or two episodes, and she said, "This is so not what I thought it was going to be," which might be the case for a lot of people, especially gardeners. I sometimes get the, "But where is the gardening? Why aren't you talking about plants more?" But really, the garden program that I created was the garden program I wanted, which is very focused on you, the people like me who actually garden. How many of you listen to the program with some regularity? How many people are subscribed to the podcast? So, for those of you who listen regularly, do you ever listen to the podcast? Okay, so it's an interesting difference. So raise your hand if you listen to the on-air program and the podcast. Yeah, if you've missed it. Because the podcast is a little different in that it takes the program that you heard on air and then it gives you me kind of talking about the program and what I took away from it and why I thought it was an important interview and what it might teach us in a kind of meta way. Or if it doesn't teach us, asks us to think about in a kind of meta way about this thing we do called gardening. How many people in the room have been gardening for 5 years? How many people have been gardening for 10, 20, 40, 50? Great. For those of you who had your hand up at 50, and I would be one of them, do you know everything there is to know about gardening? Right. Right. This is one of the truths of gardening is that you can never know it all. And it's sometimes hard to accept that, but it's also one of the great gifts of this activity is that I think almost without exception, gardeners are lifelong learners. And that's because the garden forces us to be that. And once you have that arrogant moment of thinking you do know it all or you really got it right this year, she'll teach you something different, right? And that's great. That is what keeps us learning and listening and humble and still excited about this calling. And I really do think it's a calling. And sometimes you find it when you're young because you had an adult actually share this with you. Sometimes you find it when you're a little bit older or even in middle or older age because somehow you stumble on it. But I do believe that inside of almost everybody, there is a gardener of some variety. I have 2 daughters, one of whom is 26 years old today, and another who's 22, and they're both gardeners, but they're so different. One is a digger. She has always been a digger. The other is clearly a cut flower arranger. They are different, but they are still gardeners, right? And this term, gardener, is a huge umbrella. It is a spectrum, and there is all kinds of variety and dimension on that spectrum. And so I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. As of the last census, something like 100 million households, almost 75% of all US households self-identified as engaged in gardening. That's pretty incredible, right? But then I want you to think back to the last major sports event you might have watched on television. And I want you to think about the Scott's Turf ad that was on during that sporting event, or the Miracle Grow, or there are a lot of different manifestations of this word. Who here has heard me talk about this concept of being a big G gardener? Anybody? Would you like to share what your understanding of that term is? No, not really. Okay. I can bring you the mic. Very definitely. Very definitely. I think whether or not you call yourself a gardener, you are gardening this world with every single thing you do. With every dollar you spend, with every vote you cast, with every trip you take, we are gardening this world for better or worse. And so when I say big G gardener, part of what I'm getting to is this idea of being really, really intentional about the act, because one of the things I believe after 10 years now of hosting Cultivating Place, after just about 60 years of living on this planet as the daughter of a wildlife biologist and a professional gardener, wildlife biologist father, professional gardening mother, having lived in a whole handful of states around the country, is that we as gardeners are very definitely part of a lot of the problems in our world. We buy most of the pesticides that are put out onto our landscapes. We are certainly the ones who have introduced most of the native plants, invasive plants rather, in the world. We have done plenty that is harmful. So not everybody is super excited about the word gardener. There are people who would have us give up that word and use words like, I'm a rewilder, or I am a guardian, or I am something else. But I, for one, will hold on to this word gardener with every cell in my body, because it does come with some baggage, but it also comes with the truth that if we are part of any problem, social, environmental, cultural, economic, what does that also mean? We are certainly a huge part of the solution. So if there are 100 million households engaged in gardening in the US today, and only 1/5 of them are gardening organically, or less than that are gardening for cultural consequence or social activism or community building, that means that it's people like you and me in this room who are that passionate about this action. We are the inoculant for the rest of that 100 million household to move the needle. How many people in the room are growing vegetables? How many people are growing native plants? How many are super excited about growing both? How many are growing flowers because you just love them? How many are growing some of those flowers because they were a favorite of your mother, your father, or your grandparents? Okay, right? Like inside the word garden is all of this. It is our personal history. It is our cultural history going back generations. And it is therefore like this gift, but this responsibility that we carry with us in the world. And one of the things that has really, it was the reason I started Cultivating Place, was I heard the sentence one too many times. Well, if you had your way sitting around in the garden drinking tea all day, that's not a life. That's not going to pay the bills. That's not going to solve the world's problems. And me saying to myself, wait a minute, this act of gardening is something humans have been doing. And when I say gardening, I very specifically mean a person tending to plants, partnering with plants in their place for all of the reasons you might think of: food, beauty, medicine, utility, function, meditation, sanity, a small business, a big business, because your neighbor shared something with you. All the reasons, right? This is as important an act of healing, of education, and of growing our world better as going to church, as fixing a great meal for your family, as sharing a great book with your book club. It is as important as going to the gym or going to the bank or going to your lawyer or going to your doctor. It is one of the greatest gifts you have been given. And to move the needle, to get more people being big G gardeners is my calling in life, because I see it as so important. And like public radio, I see it as this gift in common. We just happen to have been born on this planet. This planet happens to be habitable because of why? Plants, right? They were given to all of us. We all lucked out to live on a planet that is this generous and beautiful and self-sustaining if we let it be. So by 2030, something like 30%, maybe it's more than that, maybe it's closer to like 80% of all humans will live in developed urban environments. It's pretty impressive, this urbanization of the world's populations. And more, I just read a research report that the use of words like moss and river and tree, and there was another one, have been reduced in written and or communicated written, so digitally written communication. Those kinds of words have reduced something like 40% in our language. That is a pretty remarkable metric for disassociation with nature. And as gardeners, one of the things we know is it doesn't matter where you live with a plant. To have a cutting on your windowsill, on your stoop, even if it sprouts on your kitchen counter because that's all you've got, like we find a way to tend to plants in our place. It's people like us who will keep those words like consistently in our language, in our days, in our communities. And so I think that it is the people like us who consider themselves to be gardeners who hold the responsibility for growing this world better through this action. And I don't mean at all that you are supposed to start some kind of an empire off of this. I mean, I want you to be proud of this act that you love to do in whatever way you love to do it, and to be as intentional as you can with it. I think that, so I will be celebrating 10 years of Cultivating Place in February of 2016. That's about 500 episodes, with gardeners doing interesting things in different ways all over this globe. It's really cool. And one of the things that's clear to me is there isn't just one way to do this, right? There are as many different ways to be a big G gardener as there are people in this room, as there are in those 500 episodes. Examples we see and we share and we uplift and we amplify and we are proud of different ways that people live out this calling, the more access points there are for other people to hear it or see it and say, oh, wait, recipe from my aunt that needs that plant, I could grow it. Or whatever it might be that triggers in someone the invitation and the welcome to become a gardener. One of my great requests from the gardeners I speak with around the world: be proud of being a gardener. Share it proudly. Share it generously as it was shared with you. That is how we continue to grow good gardeners. That's how we continue to become better gardeners, is by listening to the whole variety of ways that people do this, why they do it, and how it matters. So I will really talk forever, so someone will have to say, your time is now up, Jennifer. But one of the reasons that I'm here in Cincinnati is that I will be at the Civic Garden Center. It is a closed event for their donors and volunteers, and I am recording and filming the 9th episode of a 10-episode series that we have called Cultivating Place Live. And I have curated this series of live interviews with this group of 10 gardening humans, or 10 gardening groups, because some are multiples, across the US in 2024 and 2025. The Civic Garden Center is one of those groups. And It is, yeah. And Cincinnati is a fantastic garden town, no two ways about it. Rose Henry Seeger is somewhere in the audience. Yep, here we go. She's the episode tomorrow, airing tomorrow. She is the founder of Green City Resources, who has single-handedly, as far as I can, no, she has a big team, but she has been a force behind green roofs and rooftop gardens across the city of Cincinnati. You're going to hear all about her tomorrow. The Cincinnati Zoo is like on the top of anybody's garden destinations across the U.S. So it's not that I chose the Civic Garden Center because they're the only, or that I chose this 10 because they're the only. I could have chosen 100,000 different places. The point of the series is to exemplify that when gardeners are supported and seen and valued and held to account in some cases, holding ourselves to account, everything around them grows better. Who is familiar with the term keystone species? Can anybody want to take, just be brave and say what you think a keystone species is? A woolly mammoth. Okay, I'm going to go just a little further than that. Yes. So does anybody else want to add to woolly mammoth? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, right. So, the term keystone comes from architecture, and it's that one stone in a structure that if you were to remove it, everything falls apart. This is where we got the term keystone species, and it can be a plant, it can be a mammal, it could be a bird. It is a species that is so contributing to an ecosystem that if you took them away, the whole ecosystem would falter. Doug Tallamy often uses the example of the oak, because oaks are ubiquitous across the United States. There's a native oak in almost every region. And in almost every region, those oaks are a keystone species. They support so many other lives, microorganisms to high top of the food chain predators. This is how I see the best of gardeners. That when a gardener is particularly good at what they're doing, they actually activate everything around them. They activate social structures. They activate cultural preservation. They activate language and economy. They certainly activate the environment. And I think we don't often see this. And I think this is one of the reasons that we, as gardeners, sometimes dismiss this activity as a really cute hobby, but not particularly powerful. And I think it's one of the reasons it is dismissed by the larger mainstream culture as being either something of leisure that kind of, I hate to say it, but middle-class, middle-aged white women that look just like me spend their Saturdays doing. How cute is that? Or they're seen as laborers that we pay to come in once a week to mow and blow and go. That's what gardener, I think, from people who aren't engaged in this activity, that is how gardener is dismissed and diminished, and I don't buy it. And I know for a fact, because this is what I spend my life doing, that every culture, every economic level, every section of society across time and space has gardened. And when we do it well, we make everything around us better. And that's what I want to celebrate about gardening. And that is what I want to keep sharing with the world. And that is what I mean by a big G gardener. One of the examples that I often give is that my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, was bedridden for the last 2 years of his life. He was an avid gardener in his lifetime. He loved all of the annuals he could grow from seed. He liked nasturtiums and zinnias and scabiosa, and he loved gladiolas, even though they were funeral flowers. And in this last 2 years of his life, he wasn't able to get out and garden. And he would say to me, Jennifer, take the Polaroid down and take a picture of the flowering cherry. It's in bloom right now. And I would go take the picture and I would bring him that little Polaroid. Was he any less of a gardener in that moment? No. We garden by walking down this meadow, sitting under a tree and appreciating that tree or that meadow. It's as much about energy as it is action. It is as much about intention as heart as it is about how many vegetables or flowers you grew this year. So that is what I try and do on Cultivating Place. I would love to now open this up to the audience, or I can just keep talking. But I'm really pleased to see so many of you here, and I am happy to answer any questions. I would love, by the way, to hear feedback on guests, on topics, on what you like, on what you would like more of, on how you like our 2 new guest hosts. How's that working? And I will share that. So I'm filming tomorrow with Civic Garden Center. I then film the final for this project in Northern California at the end of the month. We will then go into post-production, but you can already go online to cultivatingplacefilm.org and see the structure of what the film will be. And the name of the film is Cultivating Place, The Power of Gardeners. So I hope you will check it out, and when the time comes, which I think will be 2027, I will definitely be hitting up Cincinnati Public Radio to host a screening here in Cincinnati. And I hope everybody got a sticker. You are the first people to get the stickers. And thank you so much, Floral Paradise Gardens. All the gardeners those are really beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Speak a little. Yeah, because it was hard to find. We appreciate the frugality. That's right. And if you are not a member of Cincinnati Public Radio, I hope you will consider that today.
Is that better? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm part of a group working to restore the gardens at Cincinnati's Harriet Beecher Stowe House, which is actually, thank you. I'm actually doing this as part of the Green Space Guardians program at the Civic Garden Center. But I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts, speaking of getting people excited and proud of gardening, about getting people excited about historic gardens beyond history nerds. I'm a history nerd, so I have no problem with this, but reaching a broader group of people enthusiastic about conservation. We're doing this both for ecological reasons and for historical reasons. And I've started to see some of the things you were already talking about, just in terms of like our volunteer groups. We recruit volunteers through the Cincinnati Park System, and it's a lot easier to get people through the conservation pathway because that's cool, right? Yeah. Whereas like the gardening or horticulture helper pathway is just, it's tricky. So I just really value any thoughts you have.
Yes. So I would say that my first rule of thumb on any activity like that is you have to ask questions first. I think that often the word gardener, when it comes with preconceived notions of what that looks like or what it consists of, is a box we need to step out of. And I will often have people say to me, well, that's not for me, or that's not about me, or, and I think as gardeners, or doing a gardening project, the first thing that you have to do is find the audiences that it would impact and ask them, how can this project serve you? Not how can you serve me by coming to be a volunteer and getting passionate about it, but tell me what your experience is and how can this project serve your community or your project or your group of people. I would say that many of the very active gardeners I know are very active gardeners because they are volunteering and working and busy all the time. So finding points of intersection will be important. And so asking questions rather than making statements has been the most useful thing for me, because I'm an interviewer. So but it helps for us to listen to what people want. That's how we learn. Sure. Yeah.
Hello. I'm
Point it down a little. Yeah.
yeah, I have become involved with growing food for an urban garden. And through that, I've learned a lot about the food system and the farming system. I wonder if you can speak to the relationship of those things and how they fit with gardening.
Well, we're going to go back to that idea of a spectrum, because they are so clearly related and they are so clearly disassociated at this point in ways that are often really horrifying and confusing. And I think in any of these larger, whatever it is that keeps us up at night, and there are many things that keep us up at night right now, what I know is that there is a way that my gardening impulse can make a small contribution towards offsetting anything that keeps me up at night. That seems like a very abstract way to come at your question. In my third book, What We Sow, I did a lot of research into the history of how our industrial seed supply has come to be where it is now, and the consolidation in service of our industrialized food system. It is such a huge system that it does seem almost unrecognizable from the act of growing food in order to feed people. And I think it is actually completely, not completely, but it is very, very different than that. Our industrial food system serves an economic purpose more than it does a food purpose at this point, in my opinion. I should probably issue a caveat that none of my opinions are those necessarily of Cincinnati Public Radio, in case I get in trouble. But our industrial food system has gone, in my opinion, very, very, very far wrong. And how do we as gardeners make a dent in that? I'm sure there are farmers in the room. I'm sure there are people related to farmers in the room. I think the first thing we do, which is, it might seem like a, what do you say, not a parable, a platitude, is, to follow your instinct to take better care of your food system. Know your farmer. Go to your farmer's market, join a CSA, advocate and vote for food policy that you believe in, starting in your region, and then hopefully going upward. I think following, if this is something that's dear to your heart, you have to follow the policy and the legislation that is in front of whatever governing body it might be in front of. It could be your county commissioners, it could be your state senate and decision makers, it could be the federal ones. But the Farm Bill is one of the things you should be paying attention to. And you should be educating yourself so that you can speak more clearly about it and why you aren't going to support XYZ in it, but you would support this. But starting where you are by putting your dollars towards the food system you believe in is a great way to start, because it's having every single, having the vast bulk of dollars go one way instead of this way that got us into this problem in the first place. And so putting your dollars where your mouth is, literally, is a great start. That I hope that came at all to addressing what you just asked me about. Yeah.
Hi, that's too loud. Autistic. With a nod to the Farm Bill situation,
Yeah.
I would also like for you to speak to that we only have a 21-day commentary period on the roadless rule.
Yeah.
Could you please
Yeah.
flesh that out for me? And I also would like to declare that I'm not in my usual state of mind. I was informed moments before arriving here that my mother passed away, and she was the person who taught me how to garden, and that's why I've been gardening for 50 plus years.
Oh,
And I know that she would want me to be right where I am right now.
okay.
And our crew brought you the flowers.
Thank you.
And they're here
Thank you.
also. And thank you so much for being here. But could we please take on the roadless rule, because we need a fast commentary period. And I'm hoping
Yeah.
you're going to do it in your radio show too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And many blessings to your mother. Based just on the fact that you are here, she had a life well lived. So. The roadless rule, how many of you are familiar with it and aren't? Okay. So this is one of the federal protections that has been in place since, I believe, 1989, keeping motorized vehicles out of wilderness areas, a lot of BLM land, a lot of national parks. Our last remaining virgin forests across the nation. I think the West is particularly hard hit, but everywhere will be hard hit if this is rescinded. And there is a 21-day commentary period, and I have made a lot of public comments on it. I use my Instagram, which I hope if you're interested, you follow me on, because that's a great way for me to see you. And it's one of the things that we have to fight for. If we believe in it and we believe in the protection of open spaces and the wild spaces that are left, it's those of us who care about the land that need to be the loudest. And I deeply believe in this particular comment.
And it's not the Department of the Interior, it is the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Uh-huh.
Please understand this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And also that somewhere between 40 to 60% of all of our fresh water is coming from those groundwater protected, restricted areas.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a very complex issue, along with the sale of public lands for more multi-use or corporate use. And yeah. There you go. I would look it up, and I would, if you feel strongly about it, as we do, I would make your comments, and I would share your comments with as many people as you can to get them to make comments. It's one of those things where we can regenerate a lot by doing better now going forward. But once we lose something, there are some things we cannot regenerate. And this is one of them. So thank you for that. And, I think this is a great moment to add. I sometimes get a little pushback from the audience, and that's completely fair, that this is supposed to be a gardening program. And why do we have to talk about politics? But I'm guessing that I'm in a group of people that understand that gardening is political. It has always been political, and it always will be. And anytime that there are humans and dollars, as well as other currency like land involved, it will be political. So, yes.
A comment about the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean the show.
Yeah.
I really love the enthusiasm of your other hosts.
Yeah.
and they both kind of wrap up the show. You do as well, kind of wrap up the show in a way that helps when you end up getting in at 7:12 instead of exactly at 7 o'clock. You don't really hear the whole thing. And I like how you ask, and I don't know if you still do this, what are your 5 favorite plants? And I always like, oh, what is that? And I never know all of them. So I really like that. So the other thing I wanted to ask, the thing I wanted to ask is, animals used to be such a big part. Poop, honestly, was such a big part of gardening. And now it's this whole big fraught thing to have animals in the city or wherever. And I guess I'm curious, what would be your ideal setup so that or what has inspired you with animals? What would be a good scenario for you?
Well, okay, so first we're going to start back from the beginning. I really appreciate the comment about the new hosts and would love any more feedback on that. I love them, and I love how different they are from me because I think they really expand the audience in a beautiful, beautiful way. And yes, I always ask the 5 plant question, but sometimes it doesn't fit into the on-air program, so it ends up on the podcast. So the podcast tends to be just a little bit longer than the on-air program. It's super easy to listen to a podcast for those of you that might not have figured it out yet. So yes, I always ask that. And the question is never, what are your 5 favorite plants? The question is always, what are 5 plants you don't want to garden without and you want the world to know more about? And I ask it specifically for that reason, that all of us can stand to learn a few more plants and to learn a few more things about plants we might think we know. And so I love this question because I always am learning a plant or something about a plant that I didn't know. And I've been doing this a long time, so that's pretty great. So animals and gardens, they go together. There isn't a garden that is open to the air that does not have animal involvement. Sometimes we want to say, look at the beautiful garden I made, but that is never true. It is, look at the beautiful garden I got to be part of, because the climate, the weather, the birds, the neighboring cats, the pollinators, everything is actually partnering with you to make your garden, no matter what you think, or what your spouse might tell you or something. I love having animals in a garden if you have the room for it and if you have the capacity to care for those animals in a way that keeps the whole environment clean and healthy and self-sustaining. I love chickens. I have had chickens most of my adult life in the garden. They are lovely companions. They create beautiful poop for you to then spread out around the garden where they haven't spread it around. That final element of the mammals with the garden, it makes it a whole ecosystem. Otherwise, you have to bring in supplements like manure or compost from elsewhere. There's nothing like it. But there is nothing quite so awful in an urban environment to have animals that aren't well cared for or a compost that isn't well cared for, and all of a sudden the animals you're dealing with are raccoons and rats. They are also lovely creatures, but not exactly probably what your neighbors want next door. And I don't really love when rats get into my compost either, and we startle each other when it happens. So my ideal setting is anything you and your piece of land can take the best care of. I no longer have chickens because I live in a very rural environment. And has anyone here had chickens in a rural environment? And so you know what happens. Inevitably, somebody higher up on the food chain than you also wants your chicken. And it is a heartbreaking thing to have a chicken taken by a predator. And so I got tired of hating the predators, who I didn't want to hate, in order to have my chickens. So now I just get eggs from someone else. and poop from someone else. So that's my answer to that question. Okay, any critiques of the program? Come on now, people, there's got to be something. Any other comments about topics or guest hosts? This is your time for feedback. You're in the car and you're like, God, that lady, why doesn't she do this?
I'd love to give you feedback, but it's positive. It's
Okay, good.
I'm here with my mom, who is an avid listener to your show. Yay! She'll call me and say, turn it on. Listen to it right now. A couple of shows that I really loved. Sarah Raven, when she talked about the Year of Pots and how she describes creating a beautiful centerpiece with thrillers, spillers, and fillers.
Yeah, I love it.
Love how she spoke about that. And also, you had a program with Katie Bowman, I think is her name,
Yes.
about the movement.
Nutritious movement.
Nutritious
Wasn't that a
movement.
good one?
That was a fabulous program.
I was literally crawling around in my home garden yesterday thinking, this is nutritious movement. Yeah,
Exactly. So thank you for coming to Cincinnati.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
I had not been listening for 10 years. So I only remember one show, particularly about restoration. I think it was Rivers in the West.
Oh, yeah.
I'm active with Northside Green Space. We're in the forest. I
Yep.
think that is gardening in a way.
Yes, it
I
is.
would like more because we do use herbicide, and that's something that,
Yeah.
is a no-no, but you must under certain circumstances. So more of forests and gardening.
You would like more topics on that?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the herbicide and pesticide, at my age, at this point in my life, I am now a hard no. I'm a hard no, no matter what. And I will hear large restoration groups say, you have to use it to get a control of the invasive plants if you want to make any headway on this restoration. And I'm going to say that's a cop-out. I'm going to say, if you want it done in this amount of time for this amount of money, then it's necessary. But if you want to go more slowly, pay more people to do more work, then we can do without it. Because we did without it for a long time. I mean, we haven't had this kind of chemical load on our planet ever until the 1950s. So I am a hard no. And I'm a hard no knowing that that is going to get some pushback. But I think at a certain point, if you don't make it a hard no, you never force us as the incredibly adaptive, resilient, intelligent, resourceful creatures that we are to figure out a better way. It's just too easy to spray Roundup. And I don't know if anybody saw that piece in the New York Times about paraquat's relationship to Parkinson's. Yeah, and that essentially Parkinson's is a man-made disease based primarily on this confluence of factors, one of them being herbicides and pesticides, that you can test the breast milk of mothers across the U.S. and without exception, they will have a pesticide load in them. That just makes me want to vomit. And the only way to get past that is to say no. And the federal government isn't going to do it for us, and the corporations are not going to do it for us. But we are the end of this supply chain. If we don't say no, we keep saying yes, and they keep producing this. That's where I stand on that for now. Forever. That's where I stand on that forever. Because we're hard workers and we're smart. We can figure out better ways. Yes.
So
Yeah. It was great. I was listening, like you go into the ladies' room here at Cincinnati Public Radio and you can hear the radio on. And I, before this, was in the ladies' room and Cincinnati Edition was on. And they were having their gardening section, Go Cincinnati Edition, and they were talking about not using pesticides. Yes.
So I want to reinforce that message. I just got back from a trip to Uzbekistan, and one of the things that I did there was to go to an eco village outside of Samarkand. I had a chance to see how paper is made from mulberry trees. And what I learned about the byproduct from the mulberry tree is that if it is pressed in water, it creates its own natural pesticide. And this is what Uzbekis use to discourage termites and other pests. And I'm just saying this is we have lost some of our knowledge and our intelligence of applying natural pesticides and natural repellents
Yes.
for the cheapness and the availability of chemicals.
Agreed. Completely agreed. And you know, I am also not naive in thinking that because it's plant-based, it's perfectly healthy. And it's not. Like most of our poisons were originally derived from plants, so there's that. But we have to start somewhere, and one of those somewheres is to keep funding scientific research. Yes.
So an idea that's something I love here in Cincinnati is we have a program called Art in Bloom. Are you familiar with that?
I am. I have
Okay.
spoken for the Art and Bloom in Chicago and Minneapolis. Yeah.
I just think it's so unique, and it's just a really different way to look at plants.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things here in Cincinnati.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Thank you. And the Art and Bloom program is great. And it's another example of like how many manifestations the garden brings to our world. It is art, it is craft, it is science, it is medicine, it is economy, it is everything that keeps me sane in the world. So thank you very much for coming out. Thank you, Janelle. I am happy to sit over here. I am happy to sign book plates. I have one more question. Oh, thank you so much. The theme song for Cultivating Place was composed by a duo called Mom Muse, who are from my hometown of Chico, California. And I went to them and said, I really want you to compose a song for me. And it is, thank you. I will tell them you said that. They are beautiful vocalists. So.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Let's give her another round of applause for sharing her insights and stories with us. It's inspiring to have you here. Also, again, want to thank the Civic Garden Center of Greater Cincinnati for bringing Jewell to us, so we appreciate that. And one final reminder that you can listen to Cultivating Place via podcast, but also on WVXU Saturday at 7 a.m. and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. So Jennifer, if you did bring a book, she's going to head over to the table there. She can sign it. She's got the little book jackets too. And if you didn't get one of those really cute bamboo stickers, she's got some more over there too. Thank you everyone for coming out. We appreciate it.